John Rambo, a drifter, just passing through their town.
Morning. Headed north or south?
North.
Now jump in. I'll make sure you're heading the right direction. Huh?
You got someplace I can eat around here?
There's a diner about 30 miles up the highway.
Is there any law against me getting something here?
Yeah, me. I want you to book this gentleman for vagrancy, resisting arrest, carrying a concealed weapon.
They knew he was innocent.
Starting to dislike you. A lot.
And they didn't give a damn.
That's okay, Warren. Don't worry about the soap. He's tough. Just shave him. Try.
Don't move. I don't want you to cut your own throat.
John Rambo, one man who's been pushed too far.
You're finished! You've gone as far as you're gonna go!
Heading straight for the top. Right on top. There's no way out of here except through us.
He was hunted, trapped,
There he is! On the cliff!
and forced to fight back.
Don't push it. Don't push it. I'll give you a war you won't believe.
Teasel, you and all your men couldn't handle him before. Now, what makes you think you can handle him now?
Because God knows what damage he's prepared to do.
You don't seem to want to accept the fact that you're dealing with an expert in guerrilla warfare.
Are you telling me that 200 men against your boy is a no-win situation for us?
You send that many, don't forget one thing. A good supply of body bags.
Sylvester Stallone. This time, he's fighting for his life. First Blood.
Alrighty, welcome back to Dave's Movie Diary. Talking about First Blood from 1982. One of my all-time favourite films. I'll say it straight out. I think it's the first film I ever got really obsessed with and thought a lot about after I saw it. And nothing much has changed, really, in 40-something years. So happy to talk more about it again. And wow, there's a lot to say about this film. I saw it when I was 12 years old. I've probably watched it more than 20 times since. Okay, what's the film about? The trailer does a pretty good job of describing it, but it was directed by a guy called Ted Kotcheff, and it was our first introduction to the John Rambo character. Not the action icon that he'd later become in the mini franchise films that started a few years later. Not the myth, just the guy, the Vietnam vet who's drifting through rural America, initially looking for an old friend. It seems like most of the others have passed away or moved on. And when he comes across the family of his old friend, he finds out that his friend has died from complications linked to Agent Orange exposure, which, as we now know, had a lot of adverse effects on vets, and it devastates him. From there, he's walking along in a daze along the side of the road, and he encounters Sheriff Will Teasel. This is the Brian Dennehy character, and he sees him as a problem before he even knows who Rambo is. And a routine confrontation escalates. Rambo's arrested. He's humiliated, mistreated. This brings back traumatic memories of his time in captivity as a POW in Vietnam, and he was slashed and brutalized by them. And he breaks out, escapes into the surrounding mountains. There's a full-on manhunt, and everything gets out of control. It becomes a personal matter between Rambo and Will Teasel. It spirals out of control. So, like I said, this is one of the first films that really got to me, and it's a film I didn't just enjoy, I was obsessed with it. It was the darkest film I'd seen to that point. Things were happening in there that just reset what movies could do. I saw it through an older neighbour, the classic 80s gateway to lots of experiences. This one will stick to movies. They had a VHS years before us, and so he'd get all these movies out and ask me to watch them, and I'd watch them, and some early James Bond films and other things. But this one really stayed in my memory. At the time, it was easily the most violent film I'd ever seen. But what I remember most wasn't the violence, it was the intensity that the film struck in me. It was the feelings. I remember walking home afterwards and I could feel the adrenaline still pumping through my body. I really felt for this character. I didn't understand much about the Vietnam War then. I didn't understand PTSD or what Agent Orange was or trauma, but I just got that this guy was really hurting and he needed an outlet, and God, he found it with Will Teasel and his men and the little town. So I had to wait a few years to see it again. It came up on TV, I taped it, and I watched it heaps. And then when we got our VHS player, I rented it out. And like I said, I watched it every couple of years, probably since then. So 20 or 25 times wouldn't be an exaggeration. And it's always been floating around in my my knowledge of movies and my experience with movies. Ted Kotcheff directed it. Doesn't always get mentioned alongside the great directors of the era, but he does a great job here. He keeps everything grounded. He doesn't exaggerate. Nothing with this one really feels cartoonish. The violence in the film has real consequences. The town and the people feel real and realistic, and so it's a job well done. He'd previously directed other films. One stands out, Wake in Fright, which was an Australian film, and similar themes about masculinity, isolation, what happens when a lot of pressure's applied, run through both films. So it's a restrained directing performance. He's got great material and stars here. He just lets them cook. And particularly when you compare it to the later Rambo movies, that's an achievement. All right, let's talk about him. Sly Stallone. I'm a fan, generally. I won't say every film he's ever been in has been top shelf or that his performances have been as well. I just think he brings a unique attitude and feeling to movies. He's of an era, 80s, and some 90s, but specifically 80s, I think. And this performance, I think, is his most underrated performance. He's really doing everything physically. There's very little dialogue for him to hang on to. And the nature of the role being traumatized means he's got to rein it in a bit. He's usually quite a charming actor. He likes to smile and smirk and joke around and laugh. In this one, he's carrying an enormous emotional weight and doesn't talk about it. And that runs true to the experience for these guys, these vets. And watching it now, I can appreciate that restraint far more than I did as a kid, and even into my 20s probably. I just noticed then, obviously, the look. Guys didn't look like that back then much. This is early 80s, before Schwarzenegger's really become the phenomenon that he did. So Stallone's pretty pumped up here, but realistically, he's not crazy steroid looking. He just looks powerful, damaged, and it's a brilliant performance. I think he should have got more acknowledgement of that at the time. Brian Dennehy, well cast as Sheriff Teasel. He's not a villain. He's a proud guy. He's definitely stubborn. He's certain that he's in the right here, and he's going to keep pushing until he wins, and that makes the conflict much more interesting. He'd tell you he's trying to maintain control of his town. There's a line there where he says, pretty soon there's a whole bunch of guys like you hanging around, and that's no good. Sadly, in this one, obviously, he doesn't have any idea who he's dealing with, an ex-Green Beret. But Dennehy brings that solidity, and the character is a Korean War vet. And that's believable. He looks like he's been around. He looks like he's seen some things, that he's a bit war-weary himself. And it's nearly like Rambo's appearance picks him up and revives him. Richard Crenna, definitely now typecast as Colonel Troutman, but I think he'll live with that. He brings a lot of perspective to this role. He understands Rambo. He trained him. He was like a father figure to him in Vietnam, saved him a few times, knows exactly what he's capable of, shows up ostensibly to assist in the manhunt. It's a tricky character because you definitely get the sense that he wants Rambo to escape because of all they've been through. On the other hand, he acknowledges Rambo's done the wrong thing. He's made it personal. There's a great scene where they have a radio conversation and Troutman's the only person that Rambo will respond to. And Troutman's trying to convince him to turn himself in. Rambo doesn't want to because he's a stubborn guy too. So Crenna's great in the role. He looks convincing as a military man. He's got that bearing about him, a regalness. The performance really adds a sadness, I felt, rather than authority to the role. So he carried on through the sequels as well, but never with the same effect as he does in this one. A lot of things work for me and have always worked for me with this film. I'll go through them. The physical realism, very much of films produced in this time period. The stunt work is all that they had to rely on. There's no CGI. Yes, there's tricks they can do, but it's not digital tomfoolery. It's everything happens. It's just who's doing the stunts. Everything still looks incredible and dangerous. There's the classic scene where Rambo's hanging on the side of the cliff and the chopper comes along with one of the cops in it who's taking shots at him. There's nowhere for him to go, so he jumps backwards off the cliff face into a huge tree underneath, hits every branch on the way down and survives, probably with some broken ribs. And there's a guy that does the initial stunt, jumping off the cliff, and then Stallone insisted on doing the part where he goes down and hits all the branches on the tree. And right before he hits the bottom, he slams into a huge branch and grimaces notably and yells out and then hits the ground and he's rolling around. And I always thought, what a great acting performance. Then I found out he actually did break a rib or two in that. So he earned his performance in this one. There's plenty of other examples of that just wouldn't happen now. The insurance wouldn't allow it. The pacing on this is fantastic. I love a good, 95 to 115 minute film. Unless we're doing something special like Godfather. Just over 90, I think it's 93 minutes. Beautiful pacing. No wasted scenes, nothing unnecessary, no complications, no, let's just throw this into the script because I feel like it, or I want to show another aspect. Not the time and the place, not in 1982. Everything pushes forward. There's no fat on the bone. Love it. The physical environment adds a lot. The mountains aren't just a backdrop. They become part of the story, part of the narrative. There's many times when Rambo's hemmed in and has to go back, or he gets stuck on the cliff face. The temperature, you can see that it took a lot out of the actors, and it's a really great part of the story. It creates that isolation and fear and uncertainty. I love it when films do this. Deliverance is another example with the rapids and the raw nature of the environment there against the four men. All this is similar. It's just that this guy knows how to live off the land and he uses it to his advantage, while the local cops are stumbling around in the dark with their high vis hats and vests on, just waiting to be picked off. So the environment really plays a crucial part in this film. Stallone's performance, I already talked about it, but the older I get, the more impressed I am by what he does here. And I think because he's had so much flack over the years, a lot of it self-inflicted, for trying parts that just weren't him, trying to be funny, trying to be sensitive. That's all well and good, but he really succeeded the most with the Rocky and Rambo franchises, and occasionally would do something else interesting. Copland's a great example. A few other films, Demolition Man, but a lot of fails. So I think this is really his best acting, and it's a great performance. I think it was overlooked at the time, maybe because of the Rocky connotations. Rocky 3 came out in 1982, and those films were becoming a franchise and becoming more of a mainstream popcorny kind of film. So I wonder if he suffered because of that association. Not sure. This to me isn't action hero acting. I know it became a thing, and Chuck Norris made those missing in action films, and this whole idea of Vietnam vets really became a trope for a few years. But this one, I think, really looks at the material critically, and it's interested in highlighting PTSD and what can happen when someone's pushed too far. What doesn't work? This is a tricky one. I feel like if you just want to look at this film in isolation, I think it's nearly the perfect movie. It's got a bit of everything, but it's impossible now in 2026 when there's been, I don't know how many, 5 or 6 sequels, to look at this film in isolation. The sequels were very successful, but they really changed how people remember Rambo and this whole, and ultimately Stallone. They think of the guy with his shirt off and the even more pumped up muscles, wielding massive guns and being indestructible, being Terminator-like. But that's not who the character is in First Blood. It's a lot more thoughtful. It's more tragic, more human, and sometimes that gets lost. By the way, this one's based on a novel that came out 10 years earlier, in 1972, by a guy called David Morrell. It's a great read. I reread it a few months ago, actually, and it's pretty much what you see on film. It ends differently. It's a bit darker. The Rambo character's slightly younger and a bit wilder than what Stallone portrays. And conversely, the Teasel character, the sheriff, is a bit more fatherly and a bit more understanding. So, interestingly, the novel puts more of the blame onto Rambo for what happens, whereas I think the film, probably because of Stallone's influence, puts more of the onus on Will Teasel as the sheriff that is at fault. But it doesn't really make too many judgments. It shows that both men are very stubborn and wanting to escalate things. So it's rare that you get such a successful transition from a fairly pulpy novel, but a well written novel to a successful big budget film. So looking back, every time I rewatch it, I'm just amazed by what was achieved, really. And when I was 11 or 12, Rambo represented power, unstoppable. I did see it as an action film, but the more I see it now in my 50s, I really see more of a dramatic action film about a guy who came home from the war, wasn't given appropriate counseling. It's pretty obvious that vets were abused a lot when they came home. People didn't want to understand or couldn't understand what they'd been through. The Vietnam War was a very troubling period in America's history. It split the country between the conservatives who are probably on the side of the war, to the younger folks who are getting killed in their thousands. I think 57 or 58,000 troops died on the American side, and untold millions on the Vietnamese side, even more tragically. For what? So that's what I've learned over the intervening 40 years or so, is that it was a complex conflict, and people like Rambo and the characters in Coming Home and Deer Hunter and all the other great Vietnam War movies It's good that those films came out and highlighted what can happen to the human condition when it's placed under these kind of pressures. So look, if that can get through to people through the vehicle of First Blood, brilliant. If it doesn't, if nothing else, it's a great film with some really brilliant performances. I should highlight the music too. The score's really good. It's only got a Jaws feel to it, actually. It's very similar to the Jaws score. And it works in different ways, builds up tension. So my final thoughts, it's one of the most powerful films that I've seen. It still sticks with me. I love Stallone's monologue at the end. It's been heavily maligned. I don't think it's actually that hard to understand. It's quite sad, and apparently Stallone based it on first-hand accounts from Vietnam vets, so it's very tragic what happened there. So it's a film about what can happen when people stop listening to each other as well. So, yeah, I love it. I've seen it so many times. I know every scene. I can probably recount every line, actually. And it brings back a lot of memories for me, so love it. I'm sure everyone's probably seen it, but still worth another watch, I think. Maybe taking some of the issues that I've brought up into account. So check it out and catch you later.